Hello everyone, it's Leon here and I am with Phil,
Hello.
who has been playing quite a large chunk of Beyond.
Indeed, a surprisingly large chunk actually. I hope I haven't spoiled it for myself with the initial playthrough, because the thing about about Heavy Rain was that it was all about that first playthrough, wasn't it? Like, it was really designed to just suck you in, and I played it through in like 2 8-hour chunks or however long, so I'm hoping that it still has the impact when I play Beyond through for the first time.
So, explain what we're seeing here then, because obviously the whole thing covers, like, was it 15 years of her life or something? Yeah. How early does the code start? Is this where you come in, more or less?
Yeah, well, this is the start of the code, but it's not the earliest point in Jodie Holmes' life that you see. It's all kind of scattered around, and it doesn't follow chronological order. So at this point, she has been discovered by the CIA as having magical powers of sort of supernatural powers of some description, and they're just trying to sort of harness it, really. So Willem Dafoe is on point, I guess, on this team of the CIA's secret ops. Yeah. So this woman's got some cards, Jodie's in the other room, she needs to supernatural guess the card. So to do that, you enter Iden.
Yeah.
And then you can play ball if you like and just go over to the other room. You can just look at her card and go back to Jodie and just pick the right card. Yeah. But I sort of felt like I was being exploited, and I felt really uncooperative, so I just started messing things up in this room, just scaring the woman. And then Jodie's, you can hear Jodie through the other plane kind of telling you to stop doing it, and I just wouldn't, and it all went wrong, and I smashed some glass, and the woman freaked out, and Jodie got a nosebleed. But it was nice that I assume
there's
that
options,
story that option will kind of funnel into different choices.
Well, this is what were they saying today? It was like 23 endings to just to this code.
No, I don't think so. No, 23 endings to the full story.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I'm hoping that that they all kind of feel 15 years is a really, really long time. So some of these decisions are going to branch out and come up later on in the story.
I mean, do you feel when things are happening? Do you sort of feel like, well, this decision is relevant, or do you sort of know? Does it feel like it's signposts when you're going to make possibly a branching choice? I
didn't even feel like I was making a decision. I just kind of reacted to the situation, and then in retrospect I thought, maybe I should have done it that way. So in this scene, Dawkins, played by Defoe, is taking you along. He's concerned that you don't have any friends your own age because you're a lab freak who's just grown up guessing cards since you were a kid, so he's taking you along to this other girl's party, and it's like a sort of a mashup of Carrie, I guess, and like a kind of
that's a good reference, actually.
It's a bit Carrie, and then it's a bit kind of cheesy teen movie.
I mean, how does this sort of stuff play? Because obviously, statistically, the average gamer is a sort of a male of a certain age. The idea of playing a girl at a teenage party is not high on the list of most Call of Duty sort of players.
Yeah, she's not a
list of
a
things
big shouldered
to do.
grunt, is she? Yeah. She doesn't have an assault rifle. She does have Iden, though.
I sort of like really interested even more now. There is this sort of weird, it's that mundanity, isn't it, of Heavy Rain, of like making the sandwiches and trying to keep the kid keep the kid happy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in those earlier scenes that you start to, or at least I start to feel like, as vulnerable as I felt with Jodie, because she's absolutely out of her depth in that social situation, you flip to Iden and he's completely in control, and he can become a tool of vengeance if you want, or he can just kind of help you out of a bind. And so that forms really early on.
One of your playthroughs, or one of the times you played it through, there was an option to like hurt quite a lot of people, or potentially.
Yeah, there's an option at the end of that scene. I don't want to kind of give away exactly what happens, but it doesn't go well, let's just say. And there's an option to either just kind of walk away from the party, or just like press X to vengeance. So obviously I went with vengeance, which was a lot of fun. It's being Iden, like so. This is the
Iden,
absolute genus of being
Iden. What
you're
doing is
throwing things around,
you're pulling the sticks back like a spring, and then letting them go.
Kind of charging it up. Yeah. And I would have expected, especially in the earlier scene in the kind of test lab with the 2 rooms and the one-way mirror, I expected the damage to be bigger. I expected Iden to be a bit more powerful. I don't know whether it's because they're both young or something, but
so let's just go over what's happening here then. So she's just been through that training section at the military. Now she's on an operation.
She's on an operation. Because I'm just dropped in the preview code into this point, so I'm not sure what the context is, but she has to steal some documents that are behind a painting of this shape.
Just find a safe and And the CIA know she's a spook, don't they? I mean, they seem to. Well, as we saw, they're testing out her sort of spook abilities.
Yeah, they're trying to channel her abilities, they're fairly blasé about it. I mean, I guess because they've known her since she was a kid, they just know that she can do these things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many different ways there are of doing this mission. I kind of bumbled my way through, tried to possess. So you go your way into the toilet so that you can kind of do your supernatural thing on your own. I tried to possess a man. He got touched by another man. As soon as someone else touches you while you're possessing someone, that kind of throws you out of the other person's body. You know who you can possess because they've got an orange aura compared to everyone else's blue aura, which is apparently to do with how clean their soul is and how they've lived their life or whatever. I ended up doing it by just kind of bumbling my way through, possessing the Sheikh, I think, and just walking him up the stairs and opening the drawer.
Okay.
This is the scene that's
we've seen this quite a lot before. Can we just sort of talk about the controls then? So Iden we can see is kind of basically a free floating camera and using the sticks to interact with stuff. There's a lot of prompts like X's and pad waggles and stick flicks. I mean, is it basically very similar to sort of Heavy Rain?
It is. I think the UI is a bit more discreet than Heavy Rain, where there might have been a big, a directional gesture on the right stick in Heavy Rain. There's just a small white dot, and then you kind of...
Oh, you have to match her movement.
Yeah, you kind of just intuitively, well, what direction does her body need to move in? I'll flip the right stick in that direction. So that would have just been forward on the right stick.
Yeah,
that'll be
so we see a bit of slow-mo there as well. So it's when the screen slows down, doesn't it?
In combat sequence. So there's, there are still these kind of action sequences as there were in Heavy Rain, and... so that's going to be forwards again.
Yeah.
And when she's actually kind of fighting with people, there's a scene where she's kind of in a training match with a man who looks a lot like David Cage in the CIA kind of training montage.
Yeah.
And you're just reacting, left, right, up, down to whatever he's throwing at you, and then, matching her punches and kicks to what she's doing on screen in slow mo. It's trickier than it sounds, actually.
So, a lot of what I've seen so far, one of the things with Heavy Rain, you could move around sort of fairly freely. This is what I saw when you were playing it. There's lots of kind of fairly corridorish bits, like the military training stuff. You could really only go one way. Is it as sort of open as David Cage has kind of promised? He was kind of talking about it being much more sort of free. Is that just in terms of the options or in terms of how you move around?
I think it was a mistake for him to mention the word sandbox really early on. Just after Beyond was announced, it's certainly not a sandbox.
Yeah.
I haven't found it's much more freeform than Heavy Rain. There's maybe a little bit more, the corridors are slightly wider. This is actually a case in point where you're running through the woods. You can run off in different directions. I mean, you're always going to end up in a certain location.
Yeah.
But there's a slightly more of an illusion of freedom, although, it's really not a kind of go off and do your own thing kind of game. So it's certainly not a sandbox.
Okay. How does it feel, sort of tone-wise? Because obviously, Heavy Rain was, there was a serial killer. It was grim. It was dark, and it was realistic. Here, you've basically got kind of your pet poltergeist.
I'm still not sure how it sits with me, this tone, because there are moments of because I think what Quantum Dream does best is the mundane moments that we've said, like giving your estranged son his dinner. And making him do his homework and things like that.
That's my favourite bit of the whole game, I think.
It turns into something really, really beautiful, and it's the downtime.
And it's the unpredictability as well, isn't it? This feels a lot more video game. Racing along, explosions, fighting. Whereas when you're trying to make breakfast or lunch or whatever it was for a kid in the house, there's an element of kind of like, I don't quite know where this is going or what's going to happen, and where did I put the margarine?
And this is why I'm fine with QTEs, because they enable that kind of scene in the same game as a scene with where you're kind of shooting at people.
There's a lot more kind of predictable game elements in here, I think.
This is the thing. There are men with guns. There's a scene later on with a kind of hospital strewn with dead bodies and fires and debris blocking corridors and things like that. And it feels like I've played that game before. Whereas, what I want from Quantic Dream is a completely new experience, because I don't really believe any other studio could do that, the homework scene that we described in Heavy Rain.
Yeah.
With the same kind of artistic flair. So I hope there is a scene a bit like that. You're a little kid, you kind of left to your own devices, it's the run up to Christmas time, and you sneak out through the backyard and you end up in a snowball fight with local kids. And it's really nice because it is comparably mundane. There are no guns around. The only violence is having some snow thrown into your face. But I'm not sure what the ratio of very gamey action sequences to the more filmic scenes is going to be. I hope it's a little bit more like Heavy Rain. The supernatural element suggests maybe it is going to be a bit more of an action game, or at least make a few more nods to it.
I think from what I've seen, some of the more interesting stuff, more heavy rainish stuff, seems to be kind of when she's younger, when she's a little kid, and when she's still growing up, because that is fairly fresh territory for a game to be playing a 6-year-old girl, an 8-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl, whatever. And it maybe as it progresses into, she gets older and this stuff starts happening, that's when it becomes maybe more gamish.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, don't write it off. I mean, I
suspect I'm not writing off at all. I just suspect that the heavy rain, the stuff that's more like heavy rain, might happen a bit earlier when, like you say, snowball fights and colouring in books and things like that.
Yeah.
And we've run out of time. Anyway, there you go. Any comments? Well, leave a comment and we shall speak to you guys later.
Bye.